Gavin Newsom wants to become the third black president. Zohran Mamdani wants Muslims to be understood as the real victims of 9/11. And Joe Rogan wants you to consider going to church. I'm Michael Knowles. This is the Michael Knowles Show. Welcome back to the show. Is Zohran Mamdani, the next mayor of New York City, a jihadi or a communist? I answer, why not both? You know, it's like that little girl in the meme. Why not both? Much to get to, including Gavin Newsom's aspiration to become the third black president. First, though, a word from Chevron.
America is built on hard work and powered by American energy. Chevron has spent $44 billion with local businesses across all 50 states since 2022, fueling infrastructure and communities, all while strengthening local economies. Last year, Chevron increased U.S. production nearly 20%, powering communities and businesses. From the heartlands to the coasts, we're helping to fuel America's energy advantage, building a brighter future right here at home. Visit chevron.com/America to discover more.
First of all, even before I get to the third black president, it's good to be back. It's good to be back, folks. I was in Central Europe last week. I was there with Mr. Davies. We were on a super duper highly secret mission, and it was great. I obviously was still doing the show during the week. And then right before we flew out, we flew out of Munich, Mr. Davies and I decided to have a couple of Coca-Colas at some of the beer halls around Oktoberfest. And then anyway, next thing I know, I'm back here in Nashville. So it's good to be back, especially in time for the 2028 presidential race, which is, I think, officially begun. Gavin Newsom, governor of California, kind of pretended a little bit like he didn't want to be president. Oh, he was just focused on California, but it was so clear. He was challenging Ron DeSantis to debates over the best state, the best government. He was making the national fundraising circuit. He was never meeting a camera he didn't like. So now he's come out in the open. He was asked in an interview, are you thinking about running? He said, yes. I'd be lying if I said otherwise. And here is the launch. Gavin Newsom explaining his experience as a poor black child.
But also, it was also about paying the bills, man. And it was just like hustling. And so I was out there kind of raising myself, turning on the TV, started, just getting obsessed, sitting there with the Wonder Bread and 5 stacks of,
it's like the White Stack Five story.
Come on. Kraft macaroni and cheese.
Bro. Are you talking about me?
Young YG.
YG, man.
Every day in the backyard, just bouncing the basketball, throwing the ball against the wall until the ball is just like fraying, man. And your arms fall off. That's it. Whole thing. So just, and then, then this student is in the back with his head down, all of a sudden started throwing the baseball a little faster than everyone else. And started, make a few free throws because I was sitting there practicing 500 of them every damn night. And in high school, I look up in the stands, my dad's back up there.
Okay, dope.
And it's like, man. And then he's bringing his friends, and you're captain of the team, and you're like, gee, and it just saved me, and it got me into college.
Yeah, bro. Smoking blunts was a daily routine since 13. A chubby fella on the scene like me. That was before I got really, really thin. And I was born poor, this is the Steve Martin routine at the beginning of The Jerk. Steve Martin sitting there goes, I was born a poor black child. Well, that's Gavin Newsom's doing that, completely straight-faced. Can we just get a little fact check? Oh, yeah. Gavin Newsom, who says he grew up just trying to make money, just hustling, man. Dad wasn't around, We were poor, man, bro. Just throwing my basketball against the wall. Gavin Newsom's dad was a lawyer and financial advisor to the Getty family. These were oil billionaires. Gavin Newsom, you can't make this up, as a young man, was featured in a special called Children of the Rich in the San Francisco Chronicle, alongside one of the Gettys, a couple of the Gettys, actually. Newsom's father then, after being a lawyer and financial advisor to the Gettys, was a judge Gavin Newsom was a real rich kid. Gavin Newsom was, I don't know. When people are running for office, they all, because of our democratic, lowercase d, democratic politics, everyone tries to exaggerate how poor they were. As Mike Bloomberg once put it, everyone wants to claim that his mother washed more floors for less money than the other guy's mother. However, Newsom was rich. Like rich. Like there's a picture going around, I think it's legitimate, I might be mistaken, but it's been reported, of Gavin Newsom as the most stylish senior in his high school. He's wearing a Burberry scarf. Totally preposterous. And where does this all come from? He does the interview. They say, you're going to run for president. He says, I'd be lying if I said otherwise, and I can't lie. No, not me, Gavin Newsom. Gavin Newsom, who we don't have enough time to go through all of the examples in recent years, but remember during COVID, he said, you all have to stay home. You all need to be locked up and sequestered in your homes because of the threat of COVID. And then he lied and he went out and he had dinner at the French Laundry with all of his rich friends. And I don't think they were serving Wonder Bread and mac and cheese, bro. Don't think they were passing around spliffs after the dinner either, for that matter. No, they were a bunch of rich white people. And he lied to all of his constituents about the lockdown orders. But he can't lie now. No, he's running for president. Bill Clinton was the first black president, according to Toni Morrison. Barack Obama was the second black president. He was at least half black. And Gavin Newsom. Gavin Newsom will be the third black president. Okay, all right. Kamala Harris might run too. That's at least the headline. And people always believe the headline. I want to show you where that headline comes from. Kamala Harris supposedly in an interview revealing that she's going to run for president.
So on the Democratic side, Michael, former Vice President Kamala Harris gave the strongest indication yet that she may make another run for the White House. She was asked about the future that her young nieces may see. Listen to this.
When are they going to see a woman in charge in the White House?
In their lifetime, for sure.
Could it be you? Possibly. Have you made a decision yet?
No, I have not.
But you say in your book, I'm not done.
That is correct. I am not done. I have lived my entire career a life of service, and it's in my bones. And there are many ways to serve. I've not decided yet what I will do in the future beyond what I am doing right now.
Should she explore a run, Michael?
Hold on. All right, that's enough.
No,
you can throw to me,
I think
Michael. I'll be the Michael that you throw to, lady. She's not running. She's not running. That's a totally misleading headline coming from that meager little interview. All Kamala Harris says is, there will be a woman president someday. And then the interviewer pushes her, says, well, will that be you? And she seems to get defensive almost. She goes, maybe. Yeah. Are you going to run? I haven't decided yet. She's just trying to deflect it and move on. She goes, but in your book, you say that you're not done with politics yet. And Kamala says, yeah, that's true. So you're going to run? I don't know. She moves on. First of all, Kamala Harris almost certainly did not write that book. And Kamala Harris almost certainly doesn't even know what is in the book. I don't know for certain. I just know, having known a lot of politicians and political figures, most of them don't actually write their books. They hire ghostwriters. Kamala Harris doesn't understand how to use the English language. I don't think she wrote the book. Okay. And so in it, she apparently says, I'm not done with politics yet. And that's it. She's just trying to move on. This is at best Sarah Palin in 2009. Remember, Sarah Palin runs in 2008 for the vice presidency. McCain loses. And then there are all these questions. Is she going to run again? Is she going to run again? And she kept leaving the door open because, one, maybe she wanted the opportunity to. And also just having the door open leads to other opportunities, speaking opportunities, abilities to influence the party platform, yada, yada, yada. That's what Kamala's doing. But even Kamala, who I'm not saying is the sharpest tool in the shed, even Kamala looks at the poll numbers, realizes no chance. So right now, as far as I'm concerned, Gavin Newsom is leading the pack. Though other people want to run to. AOC clearly is setting herself up to potentially run for president. And looking at one of AOC's buddies there in New York, liberal Democrat in New York, you have Zohran Mamdani. Mamdani, who is the Muslim communist who will probably be the next mayor, well, he's taking on the issue of Islam head on. He is sick of the Islamophobia in New York, and he has identified the real victims of the September 11th terror attacks. We'll get to that momentarily. First, though, I want to tell you about Cowboy Colostrum. Go to cowboycolostrum.com/Knowles. Bloating and gut discomfort are incredibly common issues that millions of people deal with daily. Even when following all the standard advice, eating slower, walking after meals, avoiding processed food, sometimes you still just feel awful. That is where Cowboy Colostrum comes in. This liquid gold is packed with proteins, natural growth factors, and antimicrobial peptides that enhance immune response, reduce inflammation, and repair your gut lining. Cowboy Colostrum offers the highest quality bovine colostrum available, 100% made in America from 100% American grass-fed cows. They source from the first milking and only collect surplus after calves get their fill. Unlike other brands, they don't overprocess it, keeping it whole and full fat for maximum nutrient density. Simply add a 3-gram scoop of their delicious chocolate, Madagascar vanilla, or strawberry flavors to your coffee or smoothie. Plus, as an added bonus, the natural growth factors and peptides in Cowboy Colostrum will make your hair and skin look amazing. Mr. Davies swears by this stuff, okay? And he's a big, gigantic Giga Chad. So if you want to look like him for a limited time, our listeners get up to 25% off their entire order. Go to cowboycolostrum.com/Knowles, K-N-O-W-L-E-S. Use code Knowles, K-N-O-W-L-E-S at checkout. That's 25% off when you use code Knowles at cowboycolostrum.com/Knowles. After you purchase, they will ask you where you heard about them. Please support the show and tell them that we sent you. I have some magnificent news for your home. My best-selling pumpkin spice latte candle, PSL, is getting a refresh just in time with all that fall weather coming up in full swing, all new, a little bit bigger, a little bit. You're getting more candle for your buck in a beautiful glass vessel. Look at that. Let me just, boy, oh boy. I love sweater weather, and I got 3 reasons for you. PSL. Go get yours at thecandleclub.com/Michael. Michael. Zohran Mamdani, future mayor of New York, has just identified the real victims of 9/11.
I want to use this moment to speak to the Muslims of the city. I want to speak to the memory of my aunt, who stopped taking the subway after September 11th because she did not feel safe in her hijab. I want to speak to the Muslim city worker, whether they teach in our schools or walk the beat for the NYPD. New Yorkers who all make daily sacrifices on behalf of this city only to see their leaders spit in their face. I want to speak to every child who grows up in New York marked as the other, who is randomly selected in a way that rarely feels random, who feels that they carry a stain that can never quite be cleaned. Growing up in the shadow of 9/11, I have known what it means to live with an undercurrent of suspicion. I will always remember the disdain I faced, the way my name could immediately become Muhammad, and how I could return to my city only to be asked in a double-mirrored room at the airport if I had any plan of attacking it. And since I was very young, I have known that I was spared the worst of it. I was never pressured to be an informant like a classmate of mine. I have never had the word terrorist spray painted on my garage.
The real victims, you see. This goes on for like 6 minutes. I can't say I encourage you to watch the whole thing, but he just goes on and on and on. Really, it all could have been summed up with a very, very brief Norm Macdonald bit. Norm doing a joke, Zohran Mamdani doing it for real.
Well, I can't say my friend's name, but he said his biggest fear is that ISIS or some terrorist group like that would get a hold of a dirty bomb and explode it over a major city within the United States and kill tens of millions of people. Because then the blowback against innocent Muslims would be absolutely terrible.
Yeah, that's horrific.
That's true.
All right, let's do some jokes.
It's true. That bit, that joke, is now a campaign ad from the future mayor of New York. Folks, I remember 9/11 when Muslims, in the name of Islam, flew airplanes into buildings and killed 3,000 New Yorkers. And I remember the worst part of that day was that my aunt felt a little more self-conscious in her hijab. Isn't that the real tragedy of 9/11, wouldn't you say? Sometimes she wouldn't even take the subway anymore. Isn't that it? It's like, let's think about the real victims. Now, Zohran says that he is looked at with suspicion. When he was a young man, he would be questioned sometimes at airports. Look, I've been randomly selected at airports too. I don't know. It's a young fighting age men, I guess. Maybe it's because I'm a little swarthy myself. The Sicilians, we are a little ethnically ambiguous. Well, Zohran says it was outrageous. Why on earth would any authority suspect me of being a violent extremist, a jihadi? Oh, wait, hold on. Here's a picture of Zohran Mamdani with an unindicted co-conspirator of the 1993 World Trade Center bombing. There he is, all smiles, giggles, so happy. He's with 75-year-old Imam Siraj Wahhaj. He posted this recently, too. This isn't even like they dug up some picture from 100 years ago. It's part of the campaign. He's doing this now. He said this guy is a leader and pillar of the Muslim community in Brooklyn. Okay, so when Zohran Mamdani says the dream of every Muslim New Yorker is just to be looked at like everyone else, I don't think that's quite fair, right? Because the dream, at least of that New Yorker, that Muslim New Yorker, was to blow up the World Trade Center. So, not an original observation. A number of people have made this point. Hold on, folks. Look. I have a decent degree of respect for Islam. I actually do. And you know why? Because in many, many ways, Muslims are more grounded than secular leftists, okay? But are we really seriously arguing that there is no distinction between Islam and, say, Christianity? That there's no conflict between Islam and the West? Islam becomes a political issue in the West, in what would have broadly been called Christian civilization much, much earlier. But even just in the West, like Europe, it becomes an issue in 732. Islam is founded in 620? So within about 100 years of the founding of Islam in Arabia, Islam makes it all the way to Poitiers, 150 miles outside of Paris, because the Muslims almost took over all of Europe. And the only reason that they didn't is because Charlemagne's grandpa, Charles Martel, implausibly beat them back. Poitiers. Lepanto, when the Muslims almost took over again. And because of a strong wind and perhaps the intercession of Our Lady, as I believe, because of the prayers of Christendom, the Muslims were turned back. The Battle of Vienna. How about the invasion of Sicily? How about the invasion of Ostia? How about the conquest of Iberia for 800 years? How about the attack on New York? And on and on and on. We're supposed to pretend. I'm pretty moderate and open-minded on the issue of Islam. But you're going to tell me that there is no conflict whatsoever between our civilization and Islam? Come on, buddy. That's crazy. So the question is, for Mamdani, is he some kind of devout Muslim? Well, here's some evidence. This comes from Mamdani's father, who was a professor at Princeton.
America is the genesis of what we call settler colonialism. And the American model was exported all around the world. Abraham Lincoln generalized the solution of reservations. They herded American Indians into separate territories. For the Nazis, this was the inspiration. Hitler realized two things. One, that genocide was doable. It is possible to do genocide. That's what Hitler realized. Second thing Hitler realized is that you don't have to have a common citizenship. You can differentiate between people. The Nuremberg laws were patterned after American laws. Anyway, the U.S. put Indians in reservations. The U.S. invented the model.
So America is the cause of all evils in the world. The founders of settler colonialism. That's news to me. I didn't know. I thought there were some earlier practices of settler colonialism before the United States. And the Nazis actually learned from Americans. And the Americans are the ones who taught Hitler that genocide was possible. Genocide, which has, of course, occurred for all of human history everywhere. Genocide, which occurs in the Bible, not to mention in historical sources everywhere throughout all of history. To me, I know people are going to be tempted to say, oh, this is a Muslim, this is a jihadi using his powers of taqiyya to take over the... I don't really buy it. There's some of that. I mean, in the Islamic revolutions of the 20th century, there was some use of leftist slogans to lead to revolution and rebellions. But I don't know, to me, when I look at a Zohran Mamdani, it seems to me more like rote leftism, which is anti-American and which takes in some of the identity politics. Hence, you get the Islamic stuff or the Arab stuff or whatever, Ugandan. But to me, it's just rote leftism, and it's got a little Muslim spice on top. You know, the potato chip is leftism, and then the little sour cream and onion flavoring, that's the Islam for Mamdani. Either are a little troublesome, especially in New York. But for the people who say, no, God, he's a lot more dangerous than you think, Michael. He's not just a leftist, he's a jihadi. My response to that is, I don't know, I think leftism's pretty dangerous. I agree with The Atlantic when they say we have an epidemic of leftist terror going on right now. Looking at recent events and even longer standing events, it seems to me that while Islam has posed a 1,400-year threat to Western civilization, leftism is a more pressing threat right now. And I'll be talking about that tomorrow, by the way. I'm going to be testifying before the United States Senate, the Judiciary Subcommittee on the Constitution. So you can tune in. I'm sure it'll be on C-SPAN or something like that. That will be tomorrow because the Democrats and the media, though I repeat myself, want to deny that left-wing terrorism exists at all. So we're going to be correcting the record tomorrow. Now, speaking of sitting down with liberals in Congress and in the Senate, President Trump has finally addressed the longstanding shutdown and whether or not he would sit down with Jeffries and Schumer. We'll get to what he had to say in 1 second. First, though, I want to tell you about Vandy Crisps. Go to vandycrisps.com/Knowles. Did you know all chips and fries used to be cooked in tallow until the 1990s when big corporations switched to cheap processed seed oils? Today, seed oils make up 20% of the average American's daily calories. They've been linked to metabolic issues and inflammation. Vandy Crisps saw the problem in the snack aisle and decided to do something about it. They created an incredible potato chip with just 3 simple ingredients, absolutely no seed oils, just heirloom potatoes, sea salt, and 100% grass-fed beef tallow. That beef tallow is not just there for the amazing flavor, it is loaded with nutrients that are fantastic for your skin, brain, and hormones. When you snack on Vandy, it is completely different from eating regular chips. You feel satisfied, light, and energetic without any crash, bloat, or that gross, sluggish feeling you get afterwards. Personally, my favorite Vandy Crisp, it's the original. All the flavors are good. Barbecue, it's all good. The original. That's where it's at. It is the greatest chip I've ever had in my entire life. It is the greatest chip you will ever have in your entire life. Not one iota of hyperbole. These are 100% American-made, zero compromises. The beef tallow makes them super satiating. You will not find yourself mindlessly binging the whole bag. Are you ready to give Vandy a try? Go to vandycrisps.com/Knowles. Use code Knowles for 25% off your first order. vandycrisps.com/Knowles. Code Knowles, 25% off your first order. If you don't feel like ordering online, that's fine. Vandy is now available at your local Sprouts supermarket. Stop by and pick up a bag before they're gone. Folks, Yes or No is not just a best-selling party game to play with your friends. It is also considered by many to be the greatest interview game show on the internet. Now, we have great news. If you go to DailyWire Plus and search for the Yes or No show page, you can watch every episode ad-free and unedited, featuring questions that were too spicy for YouTube, even full episodes that were removed from the platform entirely. You can also now watch the brand new episode with Ruslan KD, where we get to the bottom of the Catholic-Protestant divide, and we get to the bottom of our drinks. Check out this teaser. Are ortho bros more difficult to debate than Catholics?
Oh, man.
You can't pin them down on anything.
Mm-hmm. Well, they would say that you guys are the ones that schismatic.
They say all sorts of stuff in Greek. Who even speaks that? You know? You can watch that right now on DailyWire Plus. President Trump was just asked if he would be willing to sit down with Hakeem Jeffries, Democrat leader in the House, and Chuck Schumer, Democrat leader in the Senate, to end what has now become the second longest government shutdown ever. Here's his answer.
After this trip, do you think you'll sit down with Hakeem Jeffries and...
I would. I'd be willing to. I would have now, too. You know, I left. I said, come on over, just put the government back. All they have to do is say yes, and it's over. And we start. And then we go into a negotiation. Look, Obamacare has been terrible. We can make it better. I'm all for that. But they're not. And they want to allow many, many illegal people that came into our country illegally from prisons, from mental institutions, from all over the world. They want them to get paid. And that's going to hurt the citizens of our country. And I just can't do it.
Can't do it. He says, look, I'll sit down with them whenever they want. They're the ones who shut the government down. I'll sit down with them. But I'm not going to give health care to... Yeah, look, their problem. This is so amazing. The Democrats' problem right now is they think that Obamacare is terrible. Our healthcare system is Obamacare. Obamacare, which was supposed to fix our healthcare system once for all. Joe Biden was there at the passage of Obamacare, said, this is a big effing deal, man. That was it, remember? That was like the whole 2008 campaign. Some of you are too young to remember this. The whole campaign was about how we need to fix healthcare once and for all, get this problem fixed. And then they pass it. It was a complete disaster. If you like your doctor, you can keep your doctor was the lie of the year, I think, from PolitiFact. They said healthcare premiums would go down. Instead, they went up, and Barack Obama copped to it. He said, well, you didn't think you were going to get all that stuff for free, huh? So it was a disaster. And now the Democrats are shutting down the government, even though the Republicans have the presidency, they have the House, they have the Senate, they have the Supreme Court, because they keep winning the presidency. But Democrats have enough minority power to shut down the government. Why? Because their own healthcare law is unsatisfactory. And I agree, it is. And so Trump is saying, yeah, Obamacare is terrible. So we should try to fix it. But no, I'm not going to give health care to... The American people elected me not to do that. That would be betraying the American people. It's totally unjust. We're not doing it. So if they want to sit down, we'll sit down, but we're not doing that. Why is this the second longest government shutdown ever? We're now on day 26 of this government shutdown. Most people don't even remember it's shut down. Members of the military might notice because there was a fear that they weren't going to get their paychecks. Then a very patriotic billionaire stepped in and actually wrote a check to cover the military pay. It could be what? If you're flying through the airport, maybe it's a little slower because of TSA. But right now, the longest government shutdown ever was 35 days. We're at 26. We're almost certainly going to go past the 35. And do you know why? I've heard very few people talking about this. The reason that this is going to keep going on and on and on, most likely, is that there is very little incentive for either party to reopen the government. This is in many ways unprecedented as a government shutdown. Usually the reason the government reopens is because Republicans face the blame for the shutdown, and they face political pressure to cave and make concessions and reopen the government. Even if the Republicans are totally in the right and Democrats are totally in the wrong, historically speaking, the Republicans always get blamed, so they have to make the concessions and they have to reopen the government. But that's not happening this time. That's what's so weird. Trump is winning the government shutdown. Even CNN had to admit it. His approval rating is looking good. The ratings of blame going to President Trump for this shutdown are looking good. Even the left-wing cable channel has to say so, which means there is no incentive for the Republicans to cave. The Republicans are winning on public polling and on the issues. Well, what about the Democrats? Shouldn't there then be an incentive for the Democrats to cave? Not really. And I think the reason behind that helps to explain why the Democrats did so badly in 2024 and why they're not looking much better for the midterms or 2028. The Democrats are held hostage to a base that is on the wrong side of virtually every 80-20 issue. The Democrats right now are above water on issues like the environment, which are so abstract, they don't really rank very high for people when they're prioritizing different issues. Democrats rate a little bit higher on healthcare. So that's what they're really pushing for in this shutdown, because they know healthcare is an issue that people care about. They rate a little bit higher on, I think, women's issues or some women's health. But again, it just is not a priority for American voters. So other than healthcare, and that gambit hasn't played out, the Democrats are on the wrong side of every 80-20 issue. So there's no pressure for them to reopen the government because their base likes that they're shutting it down and because things can't really get any worse for them. That's the problem. Things aren't getting worse for Republicans as the shutdown moves on, so there's no reason for them to cave. And things can't get worse for the Democrats. The reason the Democrats shut the government down in the first place is precisely because they're on the wrong side of all of these issues, precisely because they've lost a lot of ground with the median voter, with the mainstream public. And so they're hoping that if they go back to the well, the old tried and true strategy of shutting down the government and blaming the Republicans, maybe that will inject a little life into their party. But even that is not working. So, okay, if the shutdown itself was a last-ditch effort for the Democrats, who have really backed themselves into a corner on all these issues, what are they going to do? Why would they give up now? Then it would be all for naught. But likewise, why would the Republicans cave at all? So the issue is one where until you start to see the numbers moving, I don't think the government's going to reopen. Maybe they'll cut some backroom deal, and who knows? Maybe private polling is showing some different situation than the public polling is. But as of now, I would not hold your breath for the government to reopen. There's no reason for it to. Okay, speaking of the Senate, this story, this could have been cooked up by the Babylon Bee or the Onion. A Maine Democrat Senate candidate, Graham Plattner, has a Nazi tattoo, like an actual Nazi tattoo. I'm not saying a tattoo that Nazis might like. I mean, a tattoo that is a clear Nazi symbol. Now, I'm sorry that if you're watching this show right now, you have to look at this man's flabby nipples, but it's just show the tattoo, I guess. And you'll notice there's some weird tattoo of like a prancing, new agey dog. That's not the symbol. The symbol is underneath. Apparently, that tattoo was placed there to cover up what was this Nazi symbol, which no one disputes. It was a particular kind of skull and crossbones. And here's the story. This first-time political candidate says because according to the Associated Press, says he got the skull and crossbones tattoo in 2007 when he was in his 20s and in the Marine Corps. It happened during a night of drinking while he was on leave in Croatia, and he was unaware until recently that the image had been associated with Nazi police. Now, do you recall another young politico, another military veteran who was accused of having Nazi tattoos? That would be United States Secretary of War Pete Hegseth. And what tattoos were they talking about in his case? Pete, on his chest, has a Jerusalem cross. Jerusalem cross is a medieval Christian symbol. It's associated with the Crusaders. It's associated with just the Christian presence in Jerusalem, which the Christian presence in Jerusalem obviously has existed for 2,000 years. Ancient community. Also, it's not in this picture, though, it was in the one that I pulled earlier for the show. He has a tattoo that says Deus Vult. Deus Vult, which is the cheer of the crowd after the Council of Clermont, when Pope Urban II said that he would, in fact, respond to the call from Christians in the East to protect them from the ravages of Muslim Turks out there. Okay. Those tattoos were called Nazi tattoos, white supremacist. These are medieval, almost ancient Christian symbols. The Jerusalem cross was in the cathedral underneath Jimmy Carter during his funeral, okay? And yet we have the Democrats in the Senate running a guy with an actual overt, no one even disputes it, Nazi tattoo. And his response is, well, I didn't know. Even let's say it's true. Look, I don't think the guy's a Nazi, probably not. I don't think the Democrat candidate is actually a Nazi. There are going to be some people who are trying to score cheap political points and say, see, he's a Nazi. See, Democrats are the real racists. See what? I don't think that's the case. I'm just saying, if he didn't know, that's almost more embarrassing. It's embarrassing on both fronts. It's embarrassing that the Democrats accused Pete of having Nazi symbols because they're so unfamiliar with Christianity that they don't understand basic symbols of the Christian faith, basic phrases associated with the Christian faith for over 1,000 years in some cases. And it's also embarrassing that this guy who wants to be a federal legislator would get a tattoo without knowing what it means. It's worse. In some way, it's kind of what I say about Mamdani. In some ways, it would be better if he were a jihadi. It'd be better than being a radical leftist. In some ways, it'd be better if this guy were a Nazi than just a dope who doesn't even have the judgment to figure out what kind of symbols he's putting on his body. Okay, speaking of the military, there's a UFO, a flying saucer filmed near a military base, or at least a military facility. Less than 2 weeks ago, we launched our new flagship show, Friendly Fire, right here on DailyWire Plus. It's me, Ben Shapiro, Matt Walsh, and Andrew Klavan coming together live to debate, discuss, and yes, disagree on the biggest stories making headlines. In our very first episode, we dropped 2 massive announcements, the all-new DailyWire Lifetime membership and the first look at our upcoming epic, The Pendragon Cycle. This Wednesday night, we're back with an all-new live episode and more big announcements you will not want to miss. Plus, our deal of the decade is happening right now. Join DailyWire Plus for as little as $7 a month at dailywire.com. Watch Friendly Fire live Wednesday at 7 p.m. Eastern, only on Daily Wire Plus. My favorite comment yesterday, and it's amazing. I'm just seeing this now. I'm seeing it now. I'm hearing it for the first time. Yet again, this comment comes from the Drummers Workshop, Norm's Music. We get zillions of comments on this show, okay? I want you to know this. It's not just that I'm playing favorites. We get zillions of comments on this show. We do the show 5 days a week, plus all of the extra content we release on the weekends, but all this stuff. We've been doing this for, how long has this show been on? For like 8 years or something like that? And the Drummers Workshop, Norm's Music, keeps coming up again and again and again as my favorite comment. I don't even read the names. Almost none of the times do I read the names. But he's just got really insightful wisdom. Okay, and what does he say? He says, I knew China was up to something after I opened a fortune cookie and the fortune said, vote Mamdani. That's true. You're right. That should have tipped me off because I don't have TikTok. So I can't see China juicing the algo to promote Mamdani in New York. But yes, the fortune cookie that says vote for Zohran, that might have tipped me off. Okay, speaking of escalating conflict, speaking of the military, a UFO was filmed near a military facility. It's actually Lockheed Martin's Helendale radar testing facility. It's a military contractor facility. This guy filmed the unknown object. It looks just like a flying saucer, just floating up in the sky. Looks like it's got like a beam of some sort, kind of beaming down at the ground. And that's all we know about it. It's kind of weird. You don't know how it's up there. You don't know what it's doing. We don't know if the footage is real or not. But like, it might be real. This is from Uncanny Expeditions on YouTube. I don't know if it is real or not, but it might be real because some of the most impressive aircraft that America's ever produced come from these sorts of facilities. The U-2 spy plane, the SR-71 Blackbird, the F-117 Nighthawk, the stealth fighter, all have been developed at this facility. So sure, if we have some kind of flying saucer-like object, yeah, I guess we could make it there. You know how much I hate to say I told you so? There are going to be people, first of all, there are going to be people who say, the UFO is near the military facility. That's because the aliens are trying to get info about our It would seem like if this object is legitimate, whatever it is being developed at this facility. I have said from the beginning, the ET aliens explanation of UFOs is now, and always has been, complete nonsense. And the most likely explanation for these UFOs, which are real, some of the UFOs are real, the most likely explanation is that it's technology that we are making. But the skeptics say, or not the skeptics, the gullibles say, no, but the government says it doesn't know what these objects are. As if the government would never lie to you about classified programs and secret technology that they are always developing and that they debut years later, but consistently. So seems to me, if we're looking at like Skunk Works or something like that, these facilities And these teams that are specifically charged with, and this is all public, specifically charged with developing really, really advanced, super cool, secret technology for the U.S. government, that maybe when we find super duper cool, weird technology that we don't know about near these kinds of facilities, maybe those two things have something to do with each other. Now, it's not just government projects, I think. I don't think that explains all of the UFO, UAP phenomenon. I think some of it is people with overactive imaginations. Some of it's hallucinations. Some of it is people seeing things and just misperceiving what they're actually seeing. Some of it is people who maybe have a couple of screws loose, and so they see things that aren't there. And I am open to one further explanation, which is that in some cases, it's demons. I'm not one of those who sees demons under every rock. I know some people are inclined to do that. No, I hold the C.S. Lewis view that there are two errors you can make with demons. One is pretending they don't exist. The other is seeing them everywhere. I don't know. I don't worry about demons. But there's a spiritual aspect to the world, and there's spiritual warfare without question. And most people who don't even believe in God, I think, would believe in evil. They see evil and they realize that evil has a personality and that evil is not material. Evil is immaterial. So all of that is to say demons exist. And sometimes people get obsessed and vexed and tempted and even possessed by these sorts of things. So I don't know, maybe it's a little bit of that. But mostly, it's government projects. As I've told you for years. And you know how much I hate to say I told you so. Okay, speaking of clandestine activities, there's something that happened last week that I really want to get to. I didn't have time really to sift through all of it on my super duper highly secret skunkworks-like trip in Central Europe. The Louvre was robbed. The Louvre, which is the most frequented museum on planet Earth, the Louvre, the museum in Paris, was robbed. Items worth $102 million were taken from the Louvre on Sunday in broad daylight. Two of the thieves reportedly entered by cutting through a window with power tools. Then they threatened the security guards, who fled. Then they cut through two glass cases containing jewels, crowns, and all sorts of really nice stuff. You would ask yourself, how on earth could the Louvre be robbed? And how could the Louvre be robbed in broad daylight? Okay, here's just what's being reported. These jewels were kept previously in beautiful Rococo cases. Beautiful, lovely, ornamented, nice cases. In 2019, a decision was made to swap out those beautiful cases for ugly modern cases. So the new ugly modern cases just switch this from looking like a French royal palace to looking like a JCPenney. This looks like where you would buy maybe a Tag Heuer watch at the mall, for your father on his birthday. Not where you would find the tiara of Napoleon's empress, for instance. So you would say, okay, well, they modernized it, so surely the new ones must be better, right? No, in every single way, they're worse. So one of the explanations given for why they modernized the display cases was to make them more accessible to people, and for the marginalized and for the blah, 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 blah. But the thing about the Rococo cases is not only were they more beautiful, but they had shatterproof glass. And if they were threatened, this is just according to reporting, they would lock the jewels into a safe. So they were really, really good in case of a robbery. And the modern, Macy's-looking cases, those had nothing. Apparently, the glass was very easy to break through, and these guys robbed them. Okay, so that's one thing. Moving from old and beautiful to new and modern, which we're always told is going to make things more secure and more efficient and more, is, as is always the case, in furniture, in housing, in clothing, in everything, as is always the case, the new stuff is worse. Also, I don't want to say what kind of head of security the Louvre had. It was a female head of security. It apparently, look, I'm just making an observation, okay? Last year, the Louvre decided to name a woman to be the head of security. And women have many skills, many talents, many natural inclinations. One thing they are not good at is security, generally. the armies of the world. Absent the ancient and legendary Amazonians, the women are generally not the ones protecting stuff. It's the men that protect stuff. So they're very, very excited to announce the first female head of security at the Louvre last year. Now the most embarrassing heist in the history of the French government. The woman, the head of security, was appointed by another woman, Laurence Descartes, who was the first woman director in the Louvre's 228-year history. So again, I'm not saying this is strictly a sex thing, but just a fact. It was on their watch that this happened. And I don't know if we have a picture of Laurence Descartes. I guess we don't. But, when that doesn't work, maybe we should, instead of trying to impose DEI and modernism, and I'm not just talking about the people, I'm talking about the display cases, I'm talking about everything. Why didn't the security at the Louvre have weapons? Why did they flee? Instead of trying to impose all this stuff on the beautiful artifacts that we have from antiquity and the Middle Ages and early modernity, places like the Louvre, instead of trying to destroy them with the bad ideas of our time, maybe we just try to preserve them. Maybe we try to conserve them. Maybe we try to learn from history rather than override it and in this case, destroy it. Speaking of ancient treasures, just one little bit I want to leave you on before we go. Joe Rogan is apparently going to church.
I haven't got there, but I have started going to church every now and again.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Do you enjoy it?
I love it.
Yeah.
I do.
I do too. It's a bunch of people that are going to try to make their lives better. They're trying to be a better person. And they're trying to, for me at least, the place that I go to, they read and analyze passages in the Bible. I'm really interested in what these people were trying to say, because I don't think it's nothing. There's a lot of atheists and secular people that just like to dismiss Christianity as being foolish. It's just fairy tales. I hear that amongst self-professed intelligent people. It's a fairy tale. I'm like, I don't know if that's true. I think there's more to it. I think it's history, but I think it's a confusing history. It's a confusing history because it was a long time ago, and it's people telling things in an oral tradition and writing things down in a language that you don't understand, in the context of a culture that you don't understand, and I think there's something to what they're saying.
That's all. He's just saying there's something to the Bible. There's something, furthermore, to going to church. There's something to this Christianity thing. He goes on. It's a great conversation. That's all he's saying. He's saying, I think there's something to this. This is magnificent news. I look forward at some point to taking Joe to a traditional Latin Mass. I think that would be a lot of fun. If I'm in Austin, if he's in Nashville, it'd be a lot of fun. But this is a good start. And you know why it's so magnificent? I'm happy for Joe. I like Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan's great. So I'm happy for him that this is happening. I'm really happy for his audience, actually, that they're hearing this. But even more important than that, what is Joe Rogan's superpower? Joe Rogan's superpower is that he is the avatar of the median voter. That's his superpower. He's lived an exceptional life. He's been a TV star. He's been all these things. He's the number one podcaster in the world. He's a comedian. He's this. He's all these different things. But he somehow remains an avatar of the median voter. That's why it was so important for Trump and Vance to go on his show this year. That's why Kamala Harris wanted to go on his show, but felt that she couldn't. And that's why sometimes conservatives get a little frustrated with Joe because they say, no, come on all the way. Come on, why aren't you going on? And he's slow. He's methodical. He used to be more on the left. Now he's a little more on the right, but he's not. But yeah, he's the median voter. So when he says something, that should be taken as a very important sign, because I think it's a sign of where most people are at. And I think most people now, I'm not saying most people are, reading the Liturgy of the Hours or, proficient in Gregorian chant or something like that. I'm not saying that they've figured everything out, but I think most people right now are saying, there's something to this Christianity. New atheism's kind of dumb, and maybe we should go to church, and maybe, the smartest and most flourishing people for all of human history, like maybe they weren't just complete idiots. That's good. That's magnificent. Okay, today is Music Monday. The rest of the show continues now. You do not want to miss it. Become a member. Use code Knowles, Canada, WLAS, at checkout for 2 months free on all annual plans.